Welcome to Swami Reacts. Today we'll be reflecting on the movie Pig. Well, Pig, like many other films or books even, sometimes that I may explore in this Swami React series, is not overtly spiritual, let alone rooted in my Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. I personally believe there is often a quite depth hidden in unlikely places. Always everywhere. So many so-called secular, quote-unquote, works carry deep implications, deep lessons, deep spiritual resonances, questions of loss and meaning, love, grief, redemption, that even if they're happening on a human level and not strictly on a devotional, mystical level, still they are sending messages, they are giving hints, intimations of what it means in its full-fledged expression, echoing the heart of our particularly chosen tradition. When we learn to look at that through contemplative eyes. I always remember the example of Srila Siddhar Maharaj sometimes reading the newspaper, and one of his disciples saying, actually, when he reads the newspaper, he's reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. He's finding the Bhagavatam in the newspaper. He's finding the divine, the sacred in the apparent profane. So I consider it's a worthy exercise and discipline to engage it. So for me, it's not so much engaging with these works, with a movie like Pig, about trying to make everything explicitly devotional, but also about cultivating the tuning, the sensitivity to perceive, again, spiritual insight in what may initially seem ordinary or even distant, how to find extraordinary in the ordinary. I always recall and quote this famous line from Thomas Merton: your salvation begins in your most ordinary moments of your daily life. Of course, this is not an invitation to on purpose do ordinary things to be saved. But when we have to deal or recognize and connect with something that is not overtly divine, transcendental, mystical, extraordinary, how we can still find that substance in what seems to be something else. So I personally see this as a valuable discipline, training of my mind, a form of sadhana, if you will. I don't want to sound too much, okay, you are presenting now watching movies as a form of sadhana. But if we learn to relate to the things from a perspective of insight and gaining wisdom, why not? So a valuable discipline, trying to find the extraordinary in the ordinary, trying to find depth, message, lessons, as Mahaprabhu will do when looking at the grass or at the tree, Guru speaking to him. Lessons that can refine our vision, expand our compassion, our sensitivity, align our humanness with our divine prospect, and again, train us to listen for the sacred whispering, if you will, that comes through the cracks, through the brokenness, through the apparently dirt, mundane or whatever. So, of course, by saying all this, I don't claim that I'm fully adept and capable of engaging in this kind of integrative reading of reality or even a movie. But somehow I feel called to this experiment. I feel invited and inspired to try to do it. And in doing so, of course, I hope to invite others who can do it to enter into this practice of seeing through the surface, finding nectar where poison seems to be the only option, finding nectar where others may see only dust. There is nectar in dust. So with that spirit here, a few reflections I'd like to share with you on this movie called Pig, a film that through its simplicity, I will say, through its sorrow, through its silence, somehow it speaks volumes in its own way. It has spoken very interestingly to me, at least. So this is a movie that was actually presented officially in 2021. I just came to know it recently. And it's a very quiet, in my opinion, and unexpected film starring famous actor Nicolas Cage. And he's a recluse. He appears as a reclusive truffle hunter who is living in the wilderness in Oregon, Portland. So at one point, his beloved pig is taken from him. So he embarks on a journey that appears at first to be about recovering what was lost. But gradually, it reveals, the journey itself reveals to be something far more introspective than just, I want my pig back. As it usually happens in our life, right? We lose something, we look for that, we look back for that, and in the journey we ended up rediscovering something else that was the actual treasure we were looking for. So this is not a movie about vengeance, revenge, bitterness, resentfulness, much less spectacle. It's, for me, it's a very slow and even poetic meditation on grief, memory, love, and what truly matters when everything else falls away, falls apart. And again, we may not be a truffle hunter ourselves. We don't need to force ourselves to be in the other person, but we can again extract these archetypes, these symbols, these patterns, and see how this all takes shape and apply to me in the here and now in my own unique journey. And on top of that, I will add that the movie has a very contemplative pace, which I really like when watching a movie, which allows for proper digestion and rumination of the content that is coming at every moment. Allows for something which I would say it's rare in modern cinema, which is space, spaciousness, space to reflect, space to feel, space to be there, to enter into what's going on at a normal pace on how reality actually operates on our own daily lives. And therefore, with that space, also learn to truly listen to what's trying to be told to us, what's going on. So for me, in one sense, maybe this is the main highlight of the whole movie, the contemplative pace, which somehow mirrors the rhythm of real life. Sometimes if we watch movies that have an overstimulating tempo and dynamics, most modern films are like that. So very counterintuitive to that peak, there's to slow down, which in itself is an invitation for us to slow down in how we live our lives. Hyperlinked, multitasking, overstimulated. Slow down, pay attention, see, listen. So for me, the pacing is great. It gives viewers the time to breathe, to feel, to digest what's unfolding, and somehow to create this mirroring how this applies to me, mirroring how grief, memory, and healing actually work in real life, in our own lives, or should be working. And so this space invites for some type of silence, inner silence, for sitting with what hurts or what's unresolved in us, and to let meaning arise, meaning, purpose arise in that silence, in that space, in that time we dare to sit with our questions, sometimes even without forcing resolution, by daring to sit with that. So that for me is very revolutionary in itself, because we live in a world that is hooked on speed, so to say, right? So here's a film that instead of rushing and running is quietly whispering, saying to us, hey, life unfolds slowly at its own pace. And that's not a flaw. That's not something we need to accelerate. It's somehow grace. That's how grace many times comes to our life. Slow motion, but we have to have the ears and the eyes to capture what's taking place in that moment. Something else that came to me as important in this film is, like, of course, love is not something to be avenged, right? Many times it's always to be honored. Because at the first glance in this movie, it seems that the premise is a classic revenge journey. Well, like, they took my pig away, and I'm setting to look for my pig and to find who stole it and chastise them. And again, classical pattern, revengeful pattern. But Rob, who is the Nicolas Cage, the main character, actually he's not seeking revenge. He's seeking somehow on the depths, even if he's not aware of that. And sometimes, again, that refers back to us. He's seeking understanding. And it's very interesting how the film gradually unfolds into that direction. It seems a classical revenge journey, but gradually it subverts into from this expected narrative of retaliation, gradually replacing it with a very interesting, deeply human exploration of mourning, memory, unresolved relationships, emotions, and eventually leaving us with that classical question: what if pain is not a call to punish, right, but an invitation to remember with gratefulness, with love, as I always recall and share Richard Rohr's words on pain that he generally tells men in his male retreats, male rites of passage, like, your anger, many men deal with anger issues. Actually, you are not angry, you are sad. Behind your anger, there's some type of sadness. And behind the sadness, I will add, there's always something to heal, and something to see, again, to listen to acknowledge, to address, to embrace, to integrate, to heal, and to make part of our own journey, something that will enrich our own uniqueness. But again, on the most superficial level, it may show up as anger, and an anger journey that looks for revenge and all that stuff. But behind that, there is pain, sadness, unresolvedness, and behind that, there is the potential for healing. So again, this is a message, another highlight from the movie for me, is that grief also doesn't always need to be solved. That's not maybe the word to use. Many times it needs to be felt. We don't need to sit over our emotions, as I mentioned in my book, Radical Personalism. Don't sit on top of your emotions, sit with them and engage in dialogue with what's inside of you, with what's unresolved in you. Learn to listen to that voice. Learn to confront or be confronted, but whatever broken bits that we still hang with in our human experience. So again, Nicolas Cage, Rob's character, the journey of this person is not so much about fixing the past, because as you will see, he has lots of unresolved issues from the past, as most of us, but it's about facing it. So in looking for his pig, he's going out of his recluse, hermit-like life in the forest, going back to the city where he lived for decades, where he was well known as a famous chef, as it comes to happen, confronting people from his past situation, dynamics, memories. So the whole journey is not about, again, fixing the past, but facing it, integrating it, making it part of a higher synthesis. Not only with the theft of his pig, again, but he has also with him, as we will see, the lingering ache of his wife that has died time ago. In fact, the final scene of the movie, and I don't think I'm spoiling anything by saying that, is him listening to a tape of his wife singing. So signals a very quiet acceptance of her loss, so to say, and integrating that and moving forward to the next chapter, having accepted what he had not accepted till that point. So in one sense, we will say he doesn't fully overcome grief, like conquering and solving it, but he allows grief to soften him. He allows grief to enter into him, to be part of his journey, to transform him. As we know, there's a sacredness in that. There's a sacredness in letting loss break us open, not only break us open, rather than close us down. Because that can also happen if we are not willing to learn the lesson. Again, as Father Richard will say, there are two things that most open our heart the most: great love and great pain. So loss, pain, brokenness come to break us open, not to break us down, not to close us down, but break us open. It's a type of flourishing. It's a type of blossoming. So for me, I got that message also from this movie. And the pig, again, the movie is called Pig, although the pig will appear for a few minutes in the movie, interestingly, but the whole theme revolves around the particular entity, which beyond the pig itself, it's a symbol, works like a symbol of, I would say, unfiltered love, simplicity. Again, the pig is more than a truffle hunting companion to Rob. It's a symbol, an archetype into itself in Jungian terms. So it's representing Rob's last living connection to a world that is free of ambition, free of pretension, free of fame, which somehow was all of these were qualities related to his previous life as a chef in the big city, being famous and well known. And interestingly, at one point of the movie, also Rob explains that when he lost the pig, he said, I don't care to recover. I don't want to recover the pig because he's helping me to find these mushrooms that I'm making my living out of. I know how to find those mushrooms in different ways, looking at the trees and the wind. I just want to find my pig because I love her. So that was a very interesting point of the simplicity of why we pursue a person or a relationship, not because of the benefits I can get from that, but because I love the person. I have something positive that I feel for that person. I want to offer myself to that person. So again, the pig somehow symbolizes the simplicity of love, a love that in some way Rob found with his now deceased wife, and now in reclusion with the pig. So despite all, my point is love remains our ultimate thirst. And I'll go, of course, again, I'm not saying here the ultimate goal of life is just to love a pig. It's to love God, but in loving God, you have to love everything and everyone, including a pig. So ultimately, all these expressions of love, even if we may dare to call them relative or partial, we can always draw the lesson of, okay, all this is hinting and pointing to the ultimate necessity, prayojan in Sanskrit, prem prayojan. Love is the ultimate goal, prayojan, but prayojan also means necessity. So love is the ultimate necessity, divine love, that all-encompassing love that includes everything and excludes nothing and no one, is the final necessity. We need to love everything and everyone. That's when we will find full fulfillment. Like the Srimad Bhagavatam says, Jayatma Suprasidati. When you learn to love the divine in the center and everything else constellating around it in connection to the divine, Jayatma Suprasidati. Your soul finds full satisfaction. Of course, in its own way, finds sacred, holy dissatisfaction, because you can always love more, and love is ever evolving and increasing. That's a talk for another episode, another series. But I will say that this symbol of the pig is pointing to all this. So just to conclude, yeah, I really think it was a very nice experience to watch Pig. Again, one of the main lessons: live with your wounds, not in spite of them. Embrace the I cannot recall this Japanese art. Interesting how memory works, right? And failure of memory works as well. Okay, it's not happening. You will add that in the comment section. This Japanese art form where something breaks, right? There's brokenness, and a porcelain pot breaks, and they will put all the pieces back, and they will fill them with gold to highlight the brokenness, to say, this brokenness is like gold. This car is adding to my story, is telling a story unto itself. Kintsugi, that was the name. So basically, that's the idea here. Not only live with our wounds, but our wounds have a story to tell, are sacred reminders, if properly integrated. Again, so here Rob, the main character, emerges, not maybe triumphant. There's not like the classical happy ending of the story, but in its own ways, it's a story of redemption and triumph. He emerges not maybe successful as women think, but transparent. He doesn't win as we usually think of winning, world conquering, and everything is pink color, but he somehow re-enters the world ever so slightly more willing to be seen and known, and having integrated so many layers of his own self. So the film suggests that healing is not the absence of pain, but the integration again of pain into our aliveness. And so in that sense, I will conclude saying that this movie, that many other movies and books and stories, show this classical archetypal narrative of the hero's journey, of leaving the familiar, being confronted with the unfamiliar, integrating new lessons, returning back home with renewed eyes, or as Richard Rohr will call also the wisdom pattern of order, disorder, and reorder. We find ourselves in our comfort zone where everything is familiar, everything seems to be working. And at points we need some sacred disruption, some holy disorder that invites us to integrate things in a broader way, see in a bigger picture, work what we need to work, and allow things to be broken and death and release what needs to be released, and go into that journey. The question that sets us on a quest: be born again, return back home with reorder, with a new sense of order. We had a sense of order that needed to be upgraded and updated through disorder, so we can get to reorder, a bigger picture, a bigger capacity to accommodate and hold sacred space and embrace life from a broader, deeper place, which again, this is the wisdom pattern for all one of us. And we are very grateful today that Pig, this interesting movie, has reminded us of our sacred commitment to life. So if you have seen the movie, or if you plan to see, or whatever you may like to share on the movie or the thoughts I've shared, please feel free to do so in the comment section. We'll be very grateful to continue this ongoing dialogue with you, and see you soon for our next session of Swami Reacts.